Welcome back to Courage Zone. My name is Sergio, and I'm your host. Before I get started on this week's podcast, I always have to read my disclaimer. This podcast may discuss sensitive topics, including CSA. Listener discretion is advised. This podcast discusses experiences of abuse, violence, suicidal ideation, and CSA in which may be distressing to some listeners. The content provided is for informational and educational purposes only, and it is not a substitute for professional advice. If you or someone you know needs support, please seek help from a qualified professional or contact your local helpline in your area. Now on to the podcast. I thought I'd do it a little bit different today. Over the, course of 5 weeks now or 6 weeks, I've had different mixed messages from various people. And I say mixed messages because I guess it's a learning thing for some people. I've had messages from people who have not experienced CSA, but they have experienced mental health based on their upbringing. Not necessarily it's been somewhat traumatic, but not necessarily to the extent where of my traumatic experience. And I've also received information and guidance, I guess, from people that also have never experienced, but they just want to learn. So I thought I'd dedicate this particular podcast to those individuals that are just want to learn, continue to learn, and maybe help your spouse that whether it be male or female that has gone through CSA. And I've got a little bit about the overthinker as well. So let's get started. First, sort of like a question, and then I'll provide what it covers. So, what factors play with your mental health when you are a survivor of childhood sexual abuse, or otherwise as CSA? Well, survivors of CSA can face a range of factors that impact their mental health and well-being. These factors can be complex and interconnected, influencing various aspects of the survivor's life. Now, following are some key factors. Trauma symptoms. Survivors of CSA often experience a wide range of trauma symptoms, including flashbacks, nightmares, intrusive memories, hypervigilance, and emotional dysregulation. These symptoms can significantly impact daily functioning and quality of life. Now, speaking from my own personal experience, even after all these years, I still go through flashbacks, and these are brought up based on the most small things or silly things, as I call them, but all of a sudden it triggers a flashback. Not necessarily to the time that I was being abused, but just, or should I say, sexually abused. But it may bring a flashback of the physical abuse or the verbal abuse or the emotional abuse. The next one is nightmares. Yes, definitely nightmares for me. And even today, I still, not often, but I still do go through nightmares. And not easy to deal with, because after nightmares, I cannot go back to sleep. Unfortunately. As far as intrusive memories, I've experienced some of those throughout the years. So it's definitely there, these trauma symptoms. Shame and guilt. Survivors may experience intense feelings of shame and guilt, blaming themselves for the abuse or feeling ashamed of what happened to them. These feelings can contribute to low self-esteem, self-blame, and a distorted sense of self-worth. Again, I speak from experience that I do still feel shame and guilt. Now, I don't blame myself for what happened, but I do feel ashamed of what happened to me. It's the old, macho being a man. All of a sudden, you go through this experience and it tears you apart and it tears you down very quickly. So when they say that these feelings can contribute to low self-esteem, I'll be honest, I do have low self-esteem. Self-blame, no, I don't think I've ever done it self-blaming. I don't blame myself for it. Maybe I've mentioned it before that, I have a regret and I should have kicked the sperm donor's ass. But, it is what it is. And of course, the distorted sense of self-worth, definitely. I don't feel as complete or worth as somebody else would who has never experienced this. Trust issues. CSA can shatter trust in others, particularly in relationships that involve vulnerability and intimacy. Survivors may struggle to trust others, including family members, romantic partners, and authority figures, leading to difficulties in forming and maintaining healthy relationships. In this particular area, for me, my trust is in regards to, let's call it my blood family. I don't trust them as far as I could throw them. Anything that comes out of their mouth, to me, is a lie. It's automatically a lie. I don't trust them at all. Not even if I did have a child, I still wouldn't trust any of them at all. That's just my own personal thing. I just don't. The next one is boundary violations. The experience of CSA involves a profound violation of personal boundaries, leading to confusion and difficulties in establishing and maintaining boundaries in relationships. Survivors may struggle with assertiveness, feeling unable to assert their needs or enforce boundaries with others. I guess this goes online with me as well. It's not that I can't be assertiveness. I actually try to avoid at all costs trying to be assertive or being vulnerable. I'm not comfortable in doing any of those, only because if I have to, I will, but I'm just saying that it doesn't come natural to me. And to enforce these boundaries, I would rather at all costs avoid any disagreements or arguments, and I'd rather just agree in order to avoid it. But that's I guess that's the way my brain is now functioning. Next one is emotional dysregulation. CSA can disrupt emotional regulation, leading to difficulties in managing and expressing emotions. Survivors may experience mood swings, intense emotional reactions, and difficulty identifying and articulating their feelings. Now, I must admit, I was one of those people. Up until I started to go through therapy in my mid to late 30s, I could not express myself. Did I go through mood swings? I'm being honest, I don't recall. Most likely. Intense emotional reactions, definitely. But I definitely having a hard time expressing myself with my feelings. The next one is substance abuse. Some survivors may turn to substances like alcohol or drugs as a way to cope with the emotional pain, and distress associated with the abuse. Substance abuse can exacerbate mental health issues and lead to further complications in functioning. Now, I did abuse, as I mentioned in my previous podcast, that I had abused drugs and alcohol for quite a number of years. And I don't know, I just one day decided to just stop the drugs. Now, as far as continuing to abuse alcohol, no, I've stopped that as well. Especially now that I'm, taking certain medications for my mental health. It's quite clear it says to avoid any alcohol, but I haven't really done anything drastic in a very long time, or abused alcohol. Drugs, I've cut them off. So the next item is sexual dysfunction. CSA can have a long-lasting effects on sexual functioning and intimacy. Survivors may experience difficulties with arousal, desire, orgasm, or pain during sexual activity, impacting their relationships and self-esteem. In this particular area, I don't have any of those symptoms. I don't have any issues with that. Next one is isolation and loneliness. Survivors may feel isolated and disconnected from others, struggling to find support and understanding from friends, family, and community members. Feelings of loneliness and social isolation can exacerbate mental health issues and contribute to a sense of alienation and despair. I do still go through these things, isolation and loneliness. I do struggle with it at times, but I really have to push myself and really talk to myself to fight that isolation and loneliness. The last one in this particular area is cognitive distortions. CSA can lead to distorted beliefs about oneself, others, and the world. Survivors may develop negative self-perceptions, distrust of others, and a pessimistic outlook on life, contributing to ongoing mental health issues. For me, no. I don't have negative self-perceptions. I just, the only part about this is I have a hard time complimenting myself or say that I'm good looking or, a decent person. It's hard for me to say those things about myself. It's always been a lot easier to just talk negative about myself, only because of how sometimes I feel about myself, in the sense of feeling, worthless, broken, and so on and so forth. It is important to recognize that each survivor's experience is unique, and the impact of CSA can vary widely from person to person. Seeking support from a therapist or a counselor who specializes in trauma and abuse can provide survivors with the tools and resources needed to address these factors and work towards healing and recovery. Could not have said it better myself. It is important, in order to deal with this stuff, that you reach out to a professional person, a therapist, who has experience and specializes in trauma and abuse. I think it's important because I have come across individuals who say that they have a psychiatrist and a therapist, but from once they talk to me about things and what they're doing, it just doesn't cover everything and all the bases. So I would strongly suggest that. The next topic is, what does my spouse need to know about CSA? This is more to help those spouses who have a husband or wife or partner or a life partner that has experienced CSA. The nature of CSA is this: help your spouse understand that CSA entails and what CSA entails and the impact it can have on survivors. You need to explain that CSA involves any sexual activity and exploitation inflicted upon a child by an older or more powerful individual. And you need to emphasize that it is never the child's fault. Your personal experience. Share your own experience of CSA with your spouse in a way that feels comfortable for you. You may choose to disclose specific details or provide a general overview, depending on what feels safe and appropriate. Emotional impact. Help your spouse understand the emotional toll that CSA can have on a survivor. Describe the feelings of shame, guilt, fear, and confusion that you may have experienced as a result of the abuse. Triggers and flashbacks. Explain that certain situations, images, or conversations may trigger intense emotional reactions or flashbacks related to the abuse. Let your spouse know how they can support you during these times, such as by providing comfort. I always say, just give me a hug. That's all I need. Reassurance or space, depending on what your needs are. Impact on relationship. Discuss how CSA can affect relationships, including intimacy, trust, and communication. Be honest. That's the key thing here. Be honest about any challenges you may face in these areas and express your willingness to work together to overcome them. A need for support. Communicate your need for support from your spouse and emphasize the importance of their presence and understanding. Let them know that while you may be seeking therapy or other forms of support, their support is also invaluable to your healing journey. Boundaries. Discuss any boundaries or triggers that you may have related to the abuse and how your spouse can respect and honor them. Encourage open communication and collaboration in navigating these boundaries together. Resources for support. Provide your spouse with resources such as books, articles, or support groups to help them better understand CSA and how they can support you as a survivor. Encourage them to educate themselves and seek support if needed. It is important to approach these conversations when both of you and your spouse are in a calm and supportive environment. Be patient with each other and allow space for processing and understanding. Encourage ongoing communication and collaboration in supporting each other through this journey. I can honestly tell you, just before I go on to the next one, that when I first told my spouse, and I think we were roughly about 6 months into our dating, maybe sooner. I don't remember the exact time, but anyway, I didn't go through all of this particular steps and so on and so forth. I just felt safe with her, and I had never felt that before. And that's what sort of made me tell her. I don't know, I just had a particular feeling, but at the same time, what I feel and what it actually was could be two different things. However, thank God, my wife was extremely understanding, supportive. She continues to be a huge supporter of mine, and she will bend over backwards to help me in any way she can. The next one is, what can I do to work on my overthinking in relation to CSA? Working on overthinking, especially in relation to childhood sexual abuse, involves developing strategies to manage intrusive thoughts, reduce rumination, and promote self-compassion. The following are some techniques that you may want to try. Mindfulness and grounding techniques, very important. Practice mindful exercises to stay present and you reduce rumination. Focus on your breath, sensations in your body, or the environment around you. Grounding techniques such as naming objects in a room or focusing on physical sensations can help you bring back to the present moment when you find yourself lost in an overthinking. One of the items I use is the see, touch, hear, smell, and taste. So you start off with see, as in C-E-E. You name 5 things that you see. So in his example, I'm in a particular in our office here, so I can say computer, lamp, microphone, keyboard, water bottle, and glasses. And then the next one is touch. Now you're naming 4 things you can touch. Well, I can touch the microphone, my mouse pad, I have a flashlight, and keyboard. There are 4 things right there. The next one is 3 things that you hear. And those things, basically, I close my eyes and I listen. It could be just anything. You can hear the birds singing, maybe the TV is going, or a radio. And then you have smell. You name 2 things that you can smell. And the last one is what you can taste. So maybe it was the last thing you ate that you still have that, taste in your mouth. These things work for me. So once again, they are see, touch, hear, smell, and taste. So they do work. If I'm saying it because they do work. The next one is set boundaries with your thoughts. I'm still talking about the overthinking in relation to CSA. Set boundaries with your thoughts. Recognize when your thoughts are spiraling into overthinking patterns and consciously choose to redirect your focus. Remind yourself that you don't have to engage with every thought that arises, especially those related to the abuse. Practice setting boundaries with your thoughts by gently letting go of unproductive or distressing thoughts and refocusing your attention elsewhere. Challenge negative beliefs. Identify and challenge negative beliefs or assumptions that contribute to the overthinking and self-criticism. So, for example, if you find yourself thinking it was my fault, challenge this belief with evidence to the contrary and replace it with a more compassionate and realistic perspective, such as, I was not responsible for what happened to me, and I deserve to heal. The next one is practice self-compassion. Very important. Cultivate self-compassion by treating yourself with kindness, understanding, and acceptance. Acknowledge the pain and difficulty of your experiences without judgment. Practice self-soothing techniques such as self-talk, comforting gestures, or engaging in activities that bring you joy and comfort. Limit exposures to triggers. Identify and limit exposures to triggers that exacerbate overthinking and distress related to CSA. This may involve setting boundaries with certain people or situations, avoiding triggering media or content, and creating safe spaces where you can feel grounded and secure. Seek professional support. I'll keep repeating this 1,000 times. Consider working with a therapist who specializes in trauma and abuse. Therapy can provide you with the tools and support you need to navigate overthinking. process your experience, and develop coping strategies for managing intrusive thoughts and emotions. Engage in relaxation techniques. Practice relaxation techniques such as deep breathing, progressive muscle relaxation, or guided imagery. To help calm your mind and reduce anxiety, regularly incorporating relaxation practices into your routine can help counterattack the psychological effects of stress and promote a sense of calmness and well-being. So remember that healing from CSA is a gradual process. It's okay to seek support and take things one step at a time. Be patient and compassionate with yourself as you work and manage overthinking and reclaiming your mental well-being. The last item is the stages of survivor of CSA. I always say stages, but according to my research, there aren't any stages, but they're sort of like stages. So recovery from CSA is a complex and individualized journey, and there's no fixed sequence of stages that every survivor will experience. However, there are common themes and processes that many survivors may go through as they heal from trauma. And here are some general stages that survivors of CSA may experience. Acknowledgement and awareness. This stage involves recognizing and acknowledging that the abuse occurred. Survivors may initially struggle to come to terms with what happened and may experience feelings of denial, disbelief, or confusion. Acceptance of the impact. Survivors begin to accept and understand the impact that the abuse has had on their lives. This may involve recognizing the ways in which the abuse has affected their relationships, self-esteem, emotions, and overall well-being. Processing emotions. Survivors may experience a range of intense emotions, including anger, sadness, shame, guilt, fear, and grief. Processing these emotions is a crucial part of the healing journey, and survivors may need support from therapists, support groups, or loved ones to navigate these feelings. Building support systems. Survivors begin to reach out for support from trusted individuals, such as a friend, family members, or therapists or support groups. Building a strong support network is essential for healing, and it can provide validation, empathy, encouragement along the way. Education and understanding. Survivors seek out information and resources to better understand the dynamics of abuse, the effect of trauma, and strategies for healing. This may involve reading books, attending workshops or therapy sessions, and engaging in self-reflection. Setting boundaries. Survivors learn to set and enforce boundaries to protect themselves from further harm. This may involve establishing boundaries with abusers, toxic relationships, or situations that trigger distressing memories or emotions. Self-compassion and self-care. Survivors cultivate self-compassion and practice self-care to nurture their physical, emotional, and psychological well-being. This may involve engaging in activities that bring joy and comfort, prioritizing rest and relaxation, and practicing self-soothing techniques. It is important to note that healing is not linear, and survivors may move back and forth between stages and experience setbacks along the way. Each survivor's journey is unique, and it is essential to approach recovery with patience, compassion, and self-acceptance. As we come to the end of today's episode, I want to extend my deepest gratitude to each of you for your joining me in this important conversation about childhood sexual abuse and overthinking. It is not an easy topic to discuss, but shedding light on these issues, we take a step towards healing and understanding. To all survivors listening, your strength and resilience inspire us all.